Hey everyone, it is July 17, 2015. I'm Rene Ritchie, and right now we're going to talk about all the new iPods. This is the iMore Show. Joining me, as always, we have Serenity Caldwell. How you doing, Ren?
I'm doing all right. Hanging out. I've got a lovely new poster hanging out with me right now. I don't know if anybody... Yeah, Stompy and Trip to the Moon don't quite get along right now. I think I have to figure out a new place for one of them. But so far they're in battle right now.
Awesome. And also joining us, we have the illustrious Rich Stevens. How are you, Rich?
I'm all right. I've lived longer and prospered more, but I'm all right.
You've peaced and long lifed.
Yeah, that was my Star Wars joke.
So you were at Comic-Con. How was it?
It was brutal, but it was predictably brutal. It was pretty good. I only saw one famous person by accident, but I've never been closer to Harrison Ford in my life. It was only about a mile.
It's a very short radius to Harrison Ford.
Yeah, apparently.
It's like peak Harrison Ford.
You know Bonnie Burton used to work for Lucasfilm. She was like, this is the first time he's ever come to any of these things.
He's really excited, apparently. That makes me also excited because anytime Harrison Ford is actually committed to a project.
Yeah, I mean, when as high as he is, if he's excited, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he got his Chewie back.
He did. Well, he also probably got a lot of money.
And Callista's employed now. I mean, everybody's happy.
That's true. Oh, I actually like the looks of Supergirl. It looks like a fun show.
I've watched the pilot like 4 or 5 times now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I actually liked it more than I thought I would.
Cool. It's got to be better than the Superman movies.
Well, Rich, I could talk to you about Comic-Con and
stop.
industrialization all day.
I could too. Maybe a different show.
Yeah.
So, Ren, we got new iPods. Like,
we did.
We got nowhere.
It was kind of hinted in the source code and in the images of the new iTunes 12.2 update, but yeah, we've got new iPod shuffles, iPod nanos, and iPod touches, and unfortunately, 2 out of those 3, aside from a color change, aren't that interesting.
So it literally is just a color change for the shuffle and the nano.
Yep, and they don't even get access to Apple Music, which frustrates the heck out of me because iPods have been able to play Fair Play since the first iPod. Apple used to have DRM. This is not a like, oh, we're so scared that, you're going to walk away with our music and never sync it again. This thing used to have used to play DRM'd files. So it's ugh.
But we also had 2 years of iPhones without copy and paste.
It's also true.
So I mean, you never know. I mean, it could be something that happens after the trial period, because once everybody drops off their free trials.
Absolutely. Or it could just be that everybody's too busy on the watch and the phone to build an OS update for the Shuffle, the Nano, and the iPod Touch. I mean, that poor Nano is still running what looks like iOS 6.
Oh, except wrong.
Except so wrong. Yeah, it's the bastardized version of iOS 6 with like the little super bubbles and the Nike Plus. Like, you couldn't have put in an M7 coprocessor or something in there? You're just going to stick with the Nike integration? You have integration with the Health app, and you're not... I don't know, it felt so half-hearted to me. And it made me sad, because I love iPods. I love my little shuffle.
So you have the little... So hold that up again, Ren?
Yeah. Baby.
And here's a new version. Can we tell the difference?
Wow.
Yep, you have Space Blue, and I have I don't know.
Space Cyan.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Pantone. From here, I couldn't even tell with a Pantone book.
Yeah, yours is a little bit darker. Yours is more Cosmonauty, or actually, yours is more Boston Massacre colors. Mine is more Cosmonauty colors. To use roller derby.
It's so much better than the Pantone scale.
Are those? Yeah. No, is that pink new this week?
Is there a new?
I think the gold is new. I don't think the pink is new.
The pink, again, like the blue, it might be a new shade. I have to look at them.
We lost greens, even though Apple Watch bands are green and other stuff is green. We lost all the greens.
Yeah, you'd think that they would have color matched with the Apple Watch bands, but that blue is different than the Apple Watch blue band.
It's so weird. So yeah, to Rich's, I'm saying so yeah, many times in a row. So We did hear that the teams and John Gruber heard very similar things. That there basically no assets were committed to this project beyond new colors by the industrial design team. So there were no software engineers assigned to update the iPod Nano's bastardized Pixo iOS operating system, and there was basically nothing else done with them besides the color change. I plugged mine in to see if there was an OS update, and I think there was like a point release on my last year's iPod Nano. This one right here, and that was it. So they literally are, as far as I can see, because this got lightning in 2012. That was the big change we got last time. Trying to get it to turn on. We are stuck with years more of this.
Look at those beautiful bubbles.
Oh my gosh, it's so painful.
This is.
I mean, look at the music icon. I think that's the true kicker. That orange music icon. When was the last time we had orange for our music?
Oh, a week or two ago.
Yeah.
No, it's all. Oh, it's turn on.
It's 6, isn't it? We had red. Wasn't it red before?
Oh yeah, it was red. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting because of the duality in that they didn't want to commit any. There was absolutely no hardware team work done on this. There was no software team work done on this. There was a bit of industrial design done because we did get the new colors, but they still wanted to release it. They didn't want to just continue on. I guess they wanted new colors for the iPod Touch, and they wanted all the iPods to match. Is that maybe the only reason it got any attention?
Yeah, I suppose, but it just doesn't make sense. Like, releasing new iPods in conjunction with Apple Music, I think, makes a lot of sense because, hey, here is an actual service that you can use to sell iPods. Imagine that. Especially with running and things like that. The Shuffle, like, there are ways to make the Shuffle, to make the Nano interesting to people who don't necessarily want to buy the Apple Watch yet. Right? The Nano already has Bluetooth, and if you added like an M7 coprocessor with that and you used like Bluetooth syncing rather than plug and play via iTunes the way that the watch does it, like, there are a lot of ways to make the iPod cool and relevant and potentially, like, yeah, I would pick one up. I would pick up a Shuffle if it could send data over Bluetooth to my iPhone and like activity data. That'd be great because sometimes you're not wearing the watch. Sometimes you just want to run with the Shuffle. Sometimes you're on a roller derby track. It doesn't really make sense. Like,
sometimes it's 100% humidity and you can't wear the watch.
Yeah, exactly. The watch is not going to like you very much.
Yeah.
So it bums me out that there's a lot of potential that they could have done to make the iPod interesting that, again, probably wouldn't have cost them money and would probably have made them money. But I think they're so resource constrained right now that it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think because we heard, John Gruber heard that they are all on working on the watch team, and that's been true for a while now. They folded that whole team, all those people who were doing that work, and they moved them right into the watch division, and they're really busy. They're trying to get watchOS 2 shipped by this fall. So my guess is, Ren, and maybe I'm nuts, my guess is that Apple Music is slightly different than traditional Fairplay DRM, which these Nanos and Shuffle still do support if you have legacy content. No one should have legacy content anymore. But if you do, I believe they still support it. This is different, and creating a Bluetooth sync stack, enabling the DRM on this, all of that would have taken an engineer, maybe 2 engineers, and they just didn't get them.
You just didn't have the time, yeah. And I guess there is a possibility that they'll fix the Shuffle and the Nano, but it doesn't seem like it from their page. Like, the page is very much like, bring your music, whereas the iPod Touch is very much like, Apple Music! Yeah. You have access to this! Isn't this great? So I don't know, it just bums me out.
It's entirely possible they just bought some paint last week and they put this out to pay for Taylor Swift's paid streaming.
Yeah, exactly. We need to sell 100,000 iPod Shuffles to make up the
They had it left in the can. They had it left in the can.
We'll cover it. Fine.
I mean, at least it's a little bit better than Prime Day, but...
Hey, Prime Day had, like, extra delicious cans of spaghetti on sale.
Spaghetti in a can. I find that. Yeah, so this is a legacy product, and you said it perfectly in your article on this, Ren. Your ending was just one of the best endings ever, and I think that's true. Like, this is a holdover. It's a product for people who will not let go of their Shuffles and Nanos, who maybe need new hardware, or people who want them in a different color, but it doesn't seem like these are long for the world.
No.
So it's like, this is that 2012 MacBook Pro that just sticks around forever.
The non-Retina, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. And they'll eventually disappear, and as the watches become more and more capable, and maybe that that platform maybe won't stay on a watch. Maybe that platform will be moved over. But a non-iOS device that cannot connect to iCloud, I think, is not something Apple wants in the future.
Yeah.
So, but good news, great news. I now have an iPod Touch in gold.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the old one.
So fancy.
And the new one, the new one is missing the little...
The loop.
Yeah, the loop thing.
How much do you think AT&T pays Apple per year not to give you a cellular option for the iPod Touch?
Oh, probably millions, right?
That's most of Apple's profit right there. It's like,
I don't know if it's like so. There's a lot of things about those cellular options. The reason it costs $130 extra on the iPad is because anytime you have to include a cellular modem, you have to pay Qualcomm. And anytime you have to include CDMA, because people in America just won't get off of it, you have to pay them an exorbitant amount. And I believe it's on retail, not even on wholesale. So what's one of the reasons I believe it's still not on the MacBooks, because Apple doesn't want to give up 10 to 15% profits on MacBook sales, on retail value. For a modem, and if you add $130 to an iPod Touch, I don't know how competitive it is, even if they wanted to do it anymore.
Yeah, I want that pink one as my phone. I love that 4-inch with the pink is beautiful.
It really is. Although you could, I mean, who knows? We might see a 6C.
Yeah, do we want to talk about that? So Gruber and I talked about that a while ago when I was on the talk show, and Jason Snell brought it back up this week on 6 Colors. The idea that Apple managed to get an A8 processor into something as tiny and thin as a 4-inch, barely three-dimensional.
That's so beautiful.
iPod Touch. Yeah, so Rich, you want a 4-inch iPhone 6 class device?
I honestly, I still keep my iPhone 5 around because sometimes it's just more comfortable to use. I'm not sold on the big stuff. You know, like I like a phone and a laptop. That's where I hang out. So I want the smallest phone I can get, really.
Yeah, you know, I go back and forth because I was actually using a 5S to do the Apple Music testing since I had my beta on the 6. And I do kind of miss that form factor. It's like it's really comfy in your hand, you know. It's like there's something really nice about this. And then you add the new sort of curved form factor of the iPod Touch. It's like, I mean, I wish. Rene, do you have your 5S to compare to the?
Yeah, I'm just holding it up. My 5, it could use my 6 Plus. Like it could hollow it out like a Tauntaun and use it to stay warm.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. It fits in the screen size alone. Can you hold up the 5S next to the Touch?
You've got like a kangaroo going there.
Yeah.
So
it's living in its belly.
Jesus.
Oh, it's so pretty though.
Here's all the. Here, I'll put them this way around so you can see all the gold things.
But look at the beautiful back on that thing.
Let's go. Yeah, they're great. For people who are listening and not watching, we're just staring at gold as if we could own it and sell it like gnomes or dwarves.
But not even the gold, just the back of that iPod Touch with none of those seams.
Beautiful.
Well, it's got the window. It's still got the black RF transparent window on the top.
At least that looks intentional. That looks like some kind of cool sensor. As opposed to these weird stripes on the back of the iPhone 6.
Like a Cylon.
Of course, the iPod Touch doesn't get Touch ID and it doesn't get NFC. Sad face. No Apple.
Oh, no NFC? But can you pair an iPod Touch to your watch?
No.
Oh, jeepers.
Yeah. Your hope of using an iPod Touch as a phone is still a little bit out of reach.
Yeah, well, I mean, or at least pair it to an iPad or something.
Yeah. No, it's only the phone right now because of the cellular data.
I need to go talk to Timmy.
So I find it super interesting because I, like Serenity, ended up using an iPhone 5. Actually, using an iPhone 5, not a 5S, for Apple Music because I had the public beta on one phone, I had the developer beta on the other phone, and I needed something that was on 8.4. So I went back to the iPhone 5. And I'm the opposite. It feels a little heavy to me now, and it feels a little dense, a little brick-like, and it's weird to say to something this thin, but it's just the screen is so claustrophobic. My brain was fine with this. My brain thought this was big. In 2011, when the iPhone 5 came out, it was like a revelation. Oh, look how much bigger it is. And now going back to it, I'm almost stressed because I'm like, oh, not enough screen, and I feel like Chewy's holding up the wall on the compactor, holding it away from me. And I couldn't go back, but I find it interesting that when we had 4-inch iPhones, for a while there were a lot of really big Android phones, and people were like, please, please make a bigger phone. We need a bigger phone. And now we have bigger phones. We hear the opposite end of the spectrum going, please, please make a smaller phone. We need a smaller phone. And it's not intuitive to me what size, like, does Apple make a 4-inch, a 4.5-inch, and a 5.5-inch phone? Do they need 3? Is there any way 2 phones could cover it? If they don't want to make 3 phones, could they still? I don't know where the sweet spot is to get the biggest addressable audience.
Well, they have like 9 sizes of laptops right now. So, I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that we'll see the iPhone small, the iPhone medium, the iPhone big.
Well, I mean, the way you were talking about people not wanting to let go of their physical files on the old iPods, if they had offered a 4-inch new phone last year, I bet people would have just resisted it. You have to like go all or nothing, and then you can give it back.
Yeah, exactly. Take it away, and then be like, all right. You can have it. You've demonstrated that you're adult enough to deal with it.
But most people are like into it now, so they can offer it again, and then the other 20% will jump back.
Well, there's a pricing problem too, in that right now you have $199 and $299 for the 6 and the 6 Plus, which would theoretically, because they're using size as a differentiator, theoretically position a 4-inch phone at $99, and them putting all the new technology in a $99 phone is probably not feasible for them. So the whole iPhone 6C theory is that they will, when they introduce the 6S Plus and the 6S, they'll take the 6 guts, so it'll be a year older technology, and that would let them have the $100 cheaper because you're not getting the latest for an even lower price.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you could also look at something like just dropping it $50 instead of dropping it $100, making it $150 with subsidy, as opposed to like $199, $149.
And 4 gigabytes.
Hey, you can do a lot with 4 gigabytes.
No, you can do nothing with 4 gigabytes.
Can you even?
That's 5.
I don't think you can install. Can we about to say that, Ren? I don't think you can install iOS 8.
Not iOS 8, maybe iOS 9.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and I am going to tell you about one of our wonderful sponsors, and that is lynda.com. Lynda.com is an online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/iMore. So what is Lynda for? Lynda is for problem solvers, for the curious, for people who want to make things happen. Maybe you want to master Excel, learn negotiating tactics, build a website, boost your Photoshop skills. Go to lynda.com and feed your curious mind. Right now we have a ton of new stuff being released. There's new versions of Office that have come out, even for the Mac. There's new versions of all the Adobe stuff. Adobe CC has been updated. And lynda.com is on top of all of that. They almost always have something out immediately when a product is launched or very soon thereafter. And it's not just me trying to teach you how to use this stuff, because I really don't have any idea. It's experts. It's the best people in the industry that are doing this, and you can watch them. You can watch them on your iPhone, on your iPad, on your Android device, if that's how you want to roll. You can stream thousands of video courses on demand. You can learn at your own schedule, learn at your own pace. You can watch the whole thing or watch just a little bit of it. It's all indexed for you. There's transcripts for all of it. It's amazingly friendly. It's almost, and I'm using this analogy again, it is almost like the closest thing we have to jacking into the Matrix and downloading Kung Fu or helicopter pilot skills. It's the closest thing we have to that right now. You can take notes, refer to them later, download tutorials, and watch them on the go. You can create and save playlists. You can do everything you want to do. It is on-demand learning, and it is magnificent. So your lynda.com membership would give you unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics, all for one flat rate. If you're looking to become an industry expert, if you're passionate about a hobby, or you just want to learn something new, you've seen photography, you want to say, I want to take awesome photos. I want you to learn what this aperture priority and manual modes mean. You can go there and do it. I want to make my own podcast. You can go there, learn how to use GarageBand, learn how to use Logic, learn how to use anything that you'd like. So I want you to visit lynda.com/iMore and sign up for your free 10-day trial. That's lynda.com/iMore. Thank you so much, Lynda. So, Ren, you mentioned lack of Touch ID, and I think Apple, as much as they did bring the iPod Touch into the present, they leapt it forward from 2012 into the present. They gave it an A8 processor. They gave it an 8-megapixel camera. They did not give it the new screens. They did not give it Touch ID. I think that's still because it's a $200 device, and the fact that they gave it colors and made it a low price point, to me, says it's never going to be equal to what a flagship iPhone is.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult. Again, we're talking about how much money they can conceivably put into a product while still selling it at some kind of a profit. The iPods already are declining in terms of profit revenue, and we've known that for years. And there's really a question of, okay, well, how much can I put in here to make this appealing for kids who have devices and want to listen to music, and parents don't necessarily want to give them a full-fledged iPhone, without making it so fancy or so expensive that either it becomes horrible to replace, or too high priced. So yeah, I don't know. I'm of two minds on that. Partially because I think the current market, or the current way that they're marketing the iPod Touch, is very much like, it's the 2015 Game Boy. Play all of your favorite iOS device, all of your iOS games on it, and listen to music if you're into that sort of thing. And 14 to 17-year-olds generally aren't paying for a lot of things with Apple Pay or Touch ID.
Do most iPod Touches go to kids? Is that the deal?
From what I can understand, from all of the iPod Touch purchases I know of from my non-tech friends, it's usually children or young adults,
So
teenagers.
people who can afford not to attach a debit card.
Yeah, exactly.
Or developers who just got a new beta and want to put it on their phone.
Yeah, or that. I mean,
Oh.
it's entirely possible that the iPod Touch was just made for developers who are testing 8 and 9 to be like, we understand, but also we're going to give you a 4-inch screen because you don't need a 6.
We've stopped charging you separately for every developer program, but we'd like $200 for this testing device.
Yes, exactly.
The thing that's, and I did a whole buyer's guide on this earlier in the week, but when you put the 4-inch the iPod Touch now next to the 7.9-inch iPad Mini, it's really interesting because the latest version of the iPad Mini 3, does have Touch ID, but it doesn't have an A8. As far as I understand it, Apple couldn't scale production of the A8 to meet all the devices they had to produce last year. Now, it was never a problem putting an A8 in one of these. It was having enough A8s to put them in all the devices. So you don't get as good a camera in the iPad Mini, you don't get as good a processor, but you do get Touch ID, you do get the bigger screen. It is more expensive. It's not a clear sort of a comparison. I tried to wade through it as much as I could, but I know, just anecdotally, my godkids moved from iPod Touches to iPad Minis because they wanted the bigger screen. And Ren, I'm not sure. Do you have an idea of the approximate values here for people?
What, in terms of what? Exactly?
I'm choosing between an iPod Touch now or an iPad Mini now that Touch is finally updated.
An iPod Touch versus an iPad Mini. I honestly think it depends on size, like how much you're willing to add to your general weight package. I feel like games on a 4-inch screen versus games on a Mini are obviously that's probably going to be better with the bigger screen, but there are some games, especially like tilts and point and shoots, that don't make so much sense with that bigger device. I've tried playing games on an iPad Mini, and I almost always go back to the iPhone because, yes, it's a bigger screen, it's nicer, but I like the handheld feel. We've grown up with the handheld, like being able to hold it, or maybe hold it with one hand and like press our virtual A button while we drink.
I think for photography too, it's got the better camera and it's more portable and it's the shape of a traditional camera.
When my last iPod Touch before it vanished into the wilds, I think at Comic-Con a few years ago.
I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
I'm sure it wasn't you. My last iPod Touch I used almost exclusively as a camera, where I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna attempt to use a second device as a camera, and I just had an iPod Touch with an olive clip on it. I just used it nonstop.
Do you like the camera on that, Rene?
So it's an 8-megapixel camera now. It's not equivalent to the 8-megapixel camera on the iPhone 6. Maybe somewhere between the 4S and the 5. It seems to me so far, I've only had it for a few hours, is sort of like the iPad Air 2's camera, where it's good but not great. I mean, it's good compared to most camera phones. Most camera phones are terrible. But cameras like Z-Index, and if you notice, this is barely raised. And on an iPhone, which is a thicker device, it's quite a bit raised, so you're not getting as much camera, and there's no optical image stabilization the way there is in an iPhone 6 Plus, and so I think it's good. I think it's better than the iPad Mini for sure. It's about equivalent to the iPad Air, but if you want to be portable with it, this is way smaller than an iPad Air.
So is this the new throwaway camera? Is this the new disposable camera?
Don't throw it away.
I know. Well, you use it once when the battery runs out, you toss it, right?
Yeah, $1.99. Sorry, $199. You pick them up like Pringles. They're amazing.
Oh, sure. I was gonna make a little suit out of them.
It's odd to me though because the game performance with the A8 is so good. It's an odd device for me now. I think there are people who really love the iPod Touch and they'll be super happy with this update, but I don't know where it sits going forward either. Now that the iPads are more numerous and I don't know.
Well, it's a stocking stuffer now. If it's $199 and it's the only little thing that it works well, Grandma can just pick it up.
It's $199 for 16 gigs, yeah.
Yeah, it feels weird to be like, $199, it's a stocking stuffer. It's no problem. Like, it feels a little 1%er to say that, but at the same time, it is. Like, for Apple devices...
Well, yeah, I mean, compared to like a $6,000 iPhone.
Yeah.
You got the gold one, right?
Contract, yeah, exactly. But now, this is the sad thing, is like, these became so cheap that I felt like I had started collecting the shuffles, because I was like, they're super cheap, and they come in so many different colors, and they're adorable, and you can clip them on things. And now I'm like, now they're essentially useless with anything other than purchased music, which makes me sad.
Yeah, so there is Apple Music on the iPod Touch. So I guess if you do also want a very low cost, like if you want just to put your kids on Apple Music and don't want to have to get them a bigger device or a more powerful device. Sorry, it is more powerful, but a bigger device or something they can do more with. I keep phrasing this incredibly badly. If you just want to get your kids on Apple Music, this is a good entry-level way of doing that.
Well,
Slide them into that.
It's Apple Music in their pocket without buying them a cell phone contract.
Yes.
So maybe this is the client for the family plan. Like this is the way that second and third person gets on the Apple Music plan.
Yeah, I think that's very true. My iPod Touch turned off. I'm very sad.
No, it knows you're talking about it.
It had battery life. What happened? I don't know. All right. Well, sort of any closing thoughts on the iPods, Ren? Any last minute advice? Any wishes? Any hopes?
I mean, I think people know my wishes. I wish Apple had put more thought into the new iPods because I still love the iPods. But yeah, I mean, for people who have younger children or for people who need a testing device or just need everything in gold all of the time, this is an option. It's definitely exciting to see that Apple has not outright abandoned the iPod line, but I honestly think any future innovations in small music players is probably going to this thing, which to people who are not watching, I'm pointing at my watch.
It's such an attention grabber, the watch. It just takes sucking all the air out of the iPod room.
Click,
but it doesn't have a headphone jack, so what's the point?
Wireless.
The future is Bluetooth. Oh, actually, that's a great plug for our contest this week, Rene.
Oh yeah, Ren, you started up the photography contest again.
Yeah, I did. So we're doing or attempting to do, as long as our schedules permit, a bi-weekly contest on iMore, where we'd love to see your iPhone photography or otherwise. This week we're having you guys take photos of yourselves or your products jamming out to Apple Music. So if you, yeah, exactly, devil horns and everything. So if you if you post a photo on Instagram with, I think, hashtag iMore does Apple Music, or you post in our iMore photo contest thread, you will be entered to win a pair of Bluetooth headphones, which I think is the Java Sport. I have to look at all of these Bluetooth headphones have like super long, weird names. But they're pretty good. They're pretty good headphones. I've tested them before, and for decent Bluetooth headphones under $100.
And they work with the Apple Watch.
They do work with the Apple Watch.
You can get your Beats on with your Beats on.
So there's your complaining struck, Rich. you can enter our contest and get Bluetooth headphones.
Bluetooth headphones for some reason just don't work with my head. I don't know if it's like what's in the water content of my brain or what. I lose contact with them so much. It's crazy.
Yeah, they just slip. I do like the sort of retro yellow headphones you're rocking right now.
Oh yeah, these are Bluetooth, but they have a headphone jack cable.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That sounds like a con job to me.
No,
here, Rich, buy these expensive Bluetooth headphones. Just plug them in and they work great.
I got them because they have a Yeti on the side and they have this cool cloth top. And I thought I could get into wireless headphones, but I could not. So I hedged my bets and got one with a cord that you can use an external cord with.
Before the show, you were Neil Younging about iPhone music quality too.
Not iPhone music quality, just that I think the interface is garbage. I think the newest Apple Music interface is better than it used to be on the iPhone, but there's just nothing like a click wheel. Like I love just sliding without looking. That's me.
Tactile physical feedback.
Yep.
Yeah, I want a case that like covers over the front and then gives me iPod buttons, like for my fingers.
Could you force touch any goodness there, Serenity, if you made like a good force touch interface?
You could, yeah. You could have the little vibration if you were moving, and I'm kind of sad that the Beats Music to Apple Music transition got rid of Beats Music's beautiful turn click wheel, where you could actually see the progress of a song and scrub through it by doing the click.
What if you force click down and actually now it works like a virtual quick click wheel?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'd be into that.
There's lots of potential for force touch, so Apple, hurry up and put it into your iOS devices already, please.
I showed some people force touch on the laptop last week, and no one believed me until I turned off the laptop that it wasn't moving. It was pretty fun.
That's awesome. Which MacBook did you end up getting, Rich?
I wound up with a Space Gray 12-inch 128. 256, I believe.
Nice.
You have my envy.
You want it?
I do.
Okay, I have like 9 laptops right now.
Like Pringles. So
Yeah.
things like Pringles.
I pick them up cheap, and then I kind of sell them to people. But it's a long story.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't leave a laptop without a home. It's just sad.
No, I know. I'm using. Ugh, you don't even want to know.
Yeah, the thing for me is that the music app now has such a level of complexity, and the ellipse button, the more button, is basically the new hamburger button. And
my God, it's so many things.
And I'm just hoping that Force Press will let them sort of like they do in the Watch, which is bury that complexity, get it out of my, almost like when the guy on the deck of the battleship or the aircraft carrier says, "Clear my skies," and all the planes just clear my interface and make it like nice and Spartan and beautiful again. And then when I force touch on something, all those options will like just pop up.
Yeah, I keep on going back to design 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I'm trying to imagine. Even Forstall with his love for extraneous things.
Leather.
Seeing a pop-up show you 8 different things. I feel like, you'd have somebody like Steve or one of the employees just being like, how the F do I use this thing?
Maybe that's why they have the bigger screens now. They knew this was coming.
Yeah, they're like, people want more complexity in their devices. We're just giving them what they asked for.
When I hit 3 dots on the screen, I want the entire screen to just pop up options. I want to right-click God.
Well, let me tell you what we have planned for you, Rich Steve.
Well, I think Forstall was always like the skeuomorphic stuff was really a Steve Jobs thing that Scott Forstall managed, but I think he was a big proponent of usability, and there's probably he might have interceded on something like this, but it would be comical to have that Steve Jobs scene where he's like, "What is this app supposed to do? Manage your music, sir. Then why doesn't it do that?" And then flamethrowers.
Why doesn't it work?
Then why am I seeing updates from Drake?
Well, there is a huge tension here just from a design point of view that if your mandate is make one single thought, one unified thought, one coherent thought about music, which is essentially marching orders for putting it all into one app, and then you have this list of features, in terms of just shoving everything into an app, they did a pretty good job. They just managed to get everything in there in some semblance of order, but I would just argue that maybe all these, you could have 2 or 3 thoughts about music.
Yeah. I don't know. Also, going back to, remember the old keyboard problems where you can't tell if your shift key is on or not?
Yes.
I would really like to make it more clear as to whether or not music is on my device.
Yes, as opposed to just float. You know what? iTunes does this really well. There's the iCloud status thing, and you just see the cloud and not the cloud. And even honestly, stupid Beats Music did this as well, where you had the little phone icon on anything that was locally downloaded. And this is on some things. This is on albums and playlists in music. If you download a full album, you'll get that little icon. But it doesn't actually show up in list view. And
yes, exactly.
It's frustrating. Why couldn't you just color code them?
See, I thought it was just me being stupid, not understanding the code. But okay, that's good.
There go Propter Hawk. Rich.
Yeah. Yeah, I just watched that episode.
What was that? Great.
West Wing.
Oh, long time. Wow.
Yeah.
So we have some real-time follow-up. This is from Adiel, and he wants to know, how does we get this a lot, how does a multi-billion-dollar company not have enough people to allocate to that project meaning the iPod project, hire more people? And the answer to this is you can never have enough people. And Apple is more constrained than others because they would really only want people who are willing to work in Cupertino. So there's incredible competition from the Facebooks, from the Googles, especially from the startups that can offer engineers incredible incentives like public offerings and stock that is right now very small but could theoretically be very big. So it's fiercely competitive to get these engineers, and when you do get them, you have to assign them to your highest priority projects, and even those projects do not have enough engineers. Then you get into the mythical man month, where just adding people doesn't necessarily solve problems, because the more people you add, the more management overhead you add to it. And Apple traditionally has very, very small teams. So they're just declaring this not a priority and then assigning their assets where they think that, and I hate calling humans assets, but assigning their engineers where they think they'll do the most good. So if they had their druthers, they would have as many engineers as they possibly could, but it's never that easy.
Yeah, I mean, how many people are actually qualified to do that, too? Like, how do you train them for 2 years so they can update the iPod?
Yeah, like, Rian, what is there? I'm the guy in charge of the mutant Pixo interface. I mean, like, yeah. I don't know.
It's a little insane.
You've got to cut off Eddie Q or Phil Schiller really hard in the Apple parking lot to get assigned that job. Ren, you spent a lot of the week once again troubleshooting Apple Music. Are we getting somewhere with this now? Are we solidifying? Are we stabilizing?
Yes-ish. Better. The update definitely helped some people. I know Kirk McGellern is still in horrible Apple Music land. I think the large problem is that a lot of people were expecting it to work like iTunes Match, and they were going into it either with incomplete libraries or just going into it with very complex metadata and then expecting that Apple Music would magically deal with all of that. It's not an incorrect assumption to have, in that, I would like my music to work, and I'd like all of these meticulously crafted things to stay where they are.
It's very optimistic, though.
Yes, but exactly. It's like you are an early adopter to a big project, to Apple's first venture into really cloud-based music. They've been doing the iTunes Match thing for years, but that's the other thing. You've had 4 years to see how Apple has not exactly succeeded at dealing with complex libraries. And the amount of people who are like, I'm just going to upgrade, and I'm not going to back up my iTunes library that I've crafted for 6 years. Oh, it's fine. And then when something happens, they're like, wah, but my library. So, I don't know. I have sympathy because obviously, Apple, come on, you got to make things work. But also, I'm a little bit eye-rolling at the folks who are like, yeah, I can do this without a backup, no prob. It's all good. It's just like, come on, guys. If you're gonna, anything that's brand new, even Spotify when it first launched in Europe was not. Everybody points to Spotify as like, well, Spotify can do it. Why can't Apple do it? It's like Spotify's had a couple years to get this down. Like they were operating for what, 2 years, 3 years before they came to the U.S. Like they had a lot of experimentation time. Oh yeah, they started in Europe. I just
on the British guinea pig, on the Scandinavian guinea pigs.
Yeah.
I believe.
Well, maybe this is Tim Cook's plan to get people to let go of the music they've had since high school.
Exactly.
Guys, just let go. Let go.
And on a programming note, Serenity very kindly joined Don Melton for this month's episode of his show, and that's going to be up this weekend. So you can hear Don sort of in full-on inside-out anger mode, and Serenity just doing her best to solve all
lots of problems. Yeah, so Spotify launched in 2008, and they didn't launch in the U.S. until 2011.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they had some time.
It's like Google Maps being ahead of Apple Maps. They'll get there.
Yeah, because Google Maps had 4 years before Apple, more than that, 4 years on the iPhone.
That's
and then
true.
another like 3 or 4 on the desktop. So they had like an 8 to 10 year head start on Apple's.
I'm sure I had it on my Trio back in 2006 too. Google Maps already.
I might still. I have to find my Trio, but
now Apple has Apple Maps, so they can use that to show them where to go for Apple Music. It's just it all works together. It's a plan.
It's a map of
magic.
all the music stores as they close.
I'm going to take one more quick break and just tell you about another one of our awesome sponsors, and that is Red Hat. Red Hat is tried, it's tested, it is trusted. It's for things that are simple but not necessarily easy. Now, Red Hat is not a kind of haberdashery. It's not something you put upon your head like a a jaunty toque or a beret or something. It is actually enterprise software. It is open source software, but done with all the support that you would get from traditional proprietary software. So what is open source software? Well, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, you use it all the time. The Mac kernel is open source, sorry, Mach kernel. BSD, Unix, the whole networking layer, a lot of the stuff that OS X was built on is open source software. WebKit, which powers the Safari browser, open source. So we use it all the time, but we kind of don't think about it. And we especially don't think about it in enterprise, but that's where Red Hat lives. They are in the Fortune 500, they're in banks, they're in executive branches of the government. They're on every airline in the Fortune 500, sorry, the Fortune Global 500. 90% of all companies in the Fortune 500 understand the value and support of enterprise software that is open source but also has all of that support. So if the value of open source is a rapid innovation, freedom, interoperability that comes with community power technology, then the value of Red Hat is taking responsibility for that technology, testing it, enhancing the security, and certifying it that it will work in your data center. I've worked in enterprise before. I worked in enterprise for a decade. We had tons of open source stuff. If you just use open source by yourself, that's fine, but what you're saving in money, you're often paying off in time because it takes a lot of people to troubleshoot and fix this, and if a Google search doesn't tell you what's wrong, you're often looking at a really big investment of time and resources to fix it. With Red Hat, they're there for you. They're there supporting it. It's not just Linux. It's not just data centers. It's not just servers. It's all stuff that they have put together and they know how to run. It's simple, again, but not easy. They make sure you can get all the benefits of open source without the risk of doing it all yourself. No one else can make that promise, much less keep it. So visit redhat.com to see how they can help your enterprise with application development, storage, and cloud computing. Red Hat, different for the sake of better technology. They don't even want you to go to a specific URL or buy something. They just wanted us to tell you how great they were. So thank you very much, Red Hat, for supporting the show.
I had no idea they made the planes run. That's amazing.
They put little feet on them, and then they jog them around the runways.
They do lots of magic.
There's only a little bit of other news this week. Apple Pay launched in the UK, not in Canada yet. Same queen, still not allowed. But it did launch in the UK. There was a couple last-minute bank jockeyings. I think HSBC was one of them. But all in all, it looks like people in the UK are incredibly happy with it. Tim Cook tweeted a picture of people just going through the British Transport Authority with their Apple Watches out and beeping along their way, and it's so magical, Ren.
It is magical. I'm so happy that our overseas brethren are getting Apple Pay. No Canada yet?
No.
I'm sorry.
I got an email. I'm just going to see if I can find it. It came in this morning. It was from someone in the UK who was talking about just how magical Apple Pay was. So here it is. It's from Chris Harland. And he was saying that he's a Canadian, but he's in there. And he actually said it was like Harry Potter-esque, that contactless payment is everywhere there. And he's just going around tapping his watch, even for the flights to and from there. And it's just not fair.
I think I was last there in like 2009, and they had all the chip cards, and I felt like a gross caveman. Like with my swipe card, which is like a cassette tape glued onto a playing card. It's just terrible.
Yeah, I ran out to get lunch and coffee before the podcast, and I paid for my lunch by just tapping my Visa card, and I paid for my coffee by just scanning my Apple Watch.
It's so amazing.
I want it everywhere. And you are getting Discover Card this year. You are getting Loyalty Card. I'm hoping that the Loyalty Card thing actually encourages more retailers, because one of the things that has made some retailers hesitant is that Apple does not share a lot of data, and they will not share transaction data. And traditionally, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I used to do market basket analysis. I used to work for companies that did market basket analysis, and the whole thing is if they can get one piece of data to identify a customer, even anonymously, they can start building all these deep patterns around your behavior, and they use that for stuff like what products to put together on a store shelf, because you're more likely to buy Fritos with Coke than you are to buy Doritos with Coke, and they do all this kind of stuff because they want to maximize their shelf space and their profits. And Apple doesn't share that stuff, but with a loyalty card, you opt into it. You're saying, I will give you more insight into my shopping if you give me points and or discounts. And it's not that they're mining your data, it's that you're making an equitable exchange. You're getting something for giving it. And I think that will both sort of assuage Apple's privacy concerns, but also let stores that may have been hesitant for having Apple Pay to have it now with their loyalty cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to actually seeing some loyalty card stuff in the wild. I haven't seen anything yet, obviously, because iOS 9 is not officially out, but
Do you use any? I used to have a bunch of them. I forget. I had the movie card. I had the Best Buy card.
I had the AMC card, which sort of works in Passbook right now, where you could scan, like, every time you bought a movie ticket through AMC and Fandango, you'd get $10, and once you'd spent $100, then you'd get a $10 gift certificate that you could scan and use, which is pretty cool. But,
man, I'm never going to have to tell the Staples cashier to go by my phone number again. It's going to be great.
I know. That's what I'm really excited about, is I'm like, I don't want to give people my email address. I would rather give people Apple Pay and then have Apple Pay do it for me. So that way when I have to cancel things, it's just going through one thing. It's going through Apple.
So are you saying that because it's simply a loyalty card, presumably they can just pipe that data over to the other third party because it's not as dangerous?
Well, I think there's just it's a way for Apple to be a middleman and protect your data, where Apple basically says, here you have Serenity Caldwell card on your mailing list, but it doesn't actually give them my email address or my phone number. It's just Serenity Caldwell card, and then if I revoke it, it disappears from their system, and they can't scrape that data and give it elsewhere. At least that's what I understand.
So it's a serial number that they can build a pattern around, and not your life.
Exactly.
It's decoupled. So like the thing with what they traditionally want to do is associate it with your credit card, and you have to use your credit card. Like you could pay cash, but ideally you have very little control over that data. With Apple, they give you a one-time number, so they can't just use your credit card as a single identifying value anymore. But with the loyalty card, it's presumably something you signed up for. They can't auto-enroll you on it. It needs to be something voluntary. So it lets Apple decouple. Before, you would automatically be tracked just on your credit card. Now you have to go to the trouble of getting a discrete loyalty card in order for all that to kick in. So they can do the transactions without having to link those two things together.
So it's almost like the difference between apps and web pages, where like Apple wants to protect you from malware by only being the only source of apps, but you can load any web page you want.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think you're
idiot version.
Well, one is that you've opted in. Like you have to have a credit card, but you don't necessarily want to be tracked by it. But it's obvious if you get a loyalty card, you're giving something to get it.
Okay, that's true. And I guess you could pay cash and then pop your loyalty card out on your phone.
Yep.
If that was what you wanted to do. Oh, neat.
Like I have a Lego card that right now doesn't work with Passbook, but I hope it does. And then whenever I buy Lego, I get points, and then I can use those points to get discounts off the next Lego. And it gets me to keep shopping at Lego, so it increases my loyalty. But also because I'm getting and redeeming points, they have a better sense of what I'm buying, what store I'm buying it at, what frequency I'm buying it, which things I'm buying together, that sort of stuff. So that gives them valuable data that they can use to better arrange their stores, better arrange their shipments, all that kind of stuff.
Man. So if I asked you nicely, could you influence them to make like Golden Girls Legos?
Oh man,
that would be so awesome.
We're getting Doctor Who.
Did people love that shirt at Comic-Con?
I have a Golden Girls shirt for everybody that has all the names in that traditional like Sophia and Blanche and Rose and whatever format. That's the only thing I sold out of completely.
If you threw a party, invited everyone you knew.
It's so good.
I made a T-shirt about them because I got that song stuck in my head for 3 weeks.
Thank you for being a friend, Rich.
Yeah,
Thank you for being a friend. So sort of the last piece of business is we have a new monthly column, Ren, and it's all about awesome Apple history.
We do. I've been calling it the Mac Classic Time Machine unofficially. Stephen Hackett of 512 Pixels and Rocket and Relay FM fame is writing a monthly history column for us on this first piece was the history of iTunes. But we've also got the history, he's got a lot of history and interesting sort of peeks into the world of Apple before it was the tsunami we know it by now.
That sounds super cool.
Yeah, he's good people and he does his research, so I definitely recommend checking it out.
What I like about it so much is it's not just this is the history of Apple, which in itself is fine, but he uses it to provide enormous insight into what Apple's doing now. Mm-hmm. Because Apple's a really focused company, and their strategy on music, maybe the tactics have changed, but the overall strategy can be similar. And the same thing, I think he did cloud. You wrote something really interesting about the cloud a little while ago as well. And all of this stuff, you learn from history, but he applies it towards the present, and that makes it incredibly valuable, at least for me.
Yeah, I agree.
That sounds really cool.
All right, Rich, so when you are not gallivanting around the streets of Comic-Con, where can people find you on the interwebs?
I think the best place is R. Stevens on Twitter, RSTEVENS.
So if they want to filter out anything that you write, they should just put that right into the...
Exactly. I just block me.
Just block you. Ren, what about you?
I can be found at Settern, Settern, on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm doing more music things, but hopefully not troubleshooting. Fingers crossed.
Awesome. We have a buyer's guide that just went live today. If you're not sure whether to get the iPod Touch or the iPad, the iPhone, which one to get, which Mac, all that stuff, we have a really encapsulated version of our buyer's guide with links to all the much longer ones, so you can find that there. We're also working on the iPod Touch review. Should have that up early next week. And if you want to yell at me about things, you can do that at Rene Ritchie. Georgia's on vacation. She is she's at Georgia_Dow. And Peter Cohen was stuck in traffic. Cape Cod must be tourist season. You can find him at Flarg, Flargh. Don't forget the H. He does get quite upset if you forget his H.
Wow. Oh, Cape Cod traffic. Oh, that poor guy.
Well, apparently it's a Cape.
Yeah. One way on, one way out.
Yeah, I figured you could have a hovercraft by now. I mean, if you really wanted to get off the Cape, you could have a hovercraft.
Yeah, just make a causeway. Do what Florida does.
The Kennedys used to have a tunnel, but I don't think they have it anymore.
Well, they have They have a whole space center.
Wrong Cape.
That's Canaveral, right?
Yeah. Well, they're quantum entangled. It's fine.
That's good.
Yeah, they're close enough. You walk through a wall.
Yeah, I'm making a Harry Potter joke, but I'm going to stop myself.
Okay.
So you can find all of us at iMore. You can find this show on iTunes. iTunes is celebrating 10 years of podcasts on iTunes, which is unbelievable. So sort of like as a final question, Ren, do you have any favorites of the last 10 years you want to shout out?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'd be remiss not to call out The Incomparable, since this is the podcast that got me started doing podcasts. I was on episode 3, which is kind of insane to me. Wow. We started in 2010. It's been 5 years as of this August, and it's also the anniversary of me like starting tech writing, so it's like this crazy thing. I joined a podcast, and all of a sudden I was in this community. But before that, I actually have to shout out both Rich and Jeff Rowland, a cartoonist that I used to work with, got me hooked onto podcasts, and I hadn't really listened to them all that much before. But when I was working for Jeff, I was in their warehouse folding T-shirts, and we just had podcasts going on constantly. So we had Radiolab and WTF and oh God, Rich, what's the creepy?
Oh, you're thinking about Art Bell.
Yeah.
He used to host Coast to Coast AM, but he's coming back next week.
Is he really?
Yeah, he got kicked off Sirius XM, and now his non-compete just ended, and he's about to do creepy stuff on his own.
That's fantastic. Yeah, Coast to Coast AM, the weirdest, supernaturalist, everything is real and terrifying, but also hilarious show that I've ever heard on the internet.
I got called a reptoid on there once.
Deservedly.
High praise.
Dude.
High praise.
What about you, Rich? Any big podcast memories?
Right now, I am finally catching up on You Look Nice Today, which
heard of it
is crazy. And I'm addicted to Roderick on the Line, and You Must Remember This has a wonderful series about movie stars during World War II from about 6 months ago, which is just, it's like I did not know any of this stuff. It's wonderful.
Was this the one you were trying to get me to listen to like last month?
Yeah, well, they currently have a Charles Manson series, but the Star Wars, like all the actors during World War II, it's just mind blowing. You think of everybody pitching in the same way, but then just the shades of gray between these people.
Yeah, okay,
it's unbelievable.
I'm putting this on my list to listen to.
Sounds awesome. I was just remembering that the first 2 podcasts I stumbled upon were Mac Break Weekly. And the Trio Central Triocast, because they had a trio back then. And one was Leo Laporte. Back then it was Leo Laporte, Andy Anako, Merlin Mann, Scott Bourne, and Alex Lindsay. And the Triocast was Dieter Bohn and Mike Overbo. And I realized that I hosted Mac Break Weekly last week, and Dieter hired me basically to run iMore. And I now do the iMore show, which he and Mike started as a different podcast. So I owe quite a lot of my life to podcasts, and if I had clicked on like cooking or I don't know bird watching podcasts, maybe I'd be in a very different place right now. So
very delicious place.
Yeah, absolutely. So podcasts are phenomenal. Please check them out. I don't have much time to listen to them anymore, which sounds lame, but I don't commute anymore. And the more you write, the less you read. The more you produce, the less you listen to. But Guy English. I guess he's still a friend of the show, Guy English, even after that horrible incident at WADC.
We don't talk about that.
No. He turned me on to the Script Notes podcast by John August and Craig Mazin, which I don't write scripts, but the lessons that they talk about and the ideas and experiences and insights they share for any writer is just absolutely invaluable. And just their style, the way the show is done, everything about that. The minute I see that's out, I just listen to it immediately. So I can't recommend it more.
They're universally awesome.
That sounds great.
He wrote Charlie's Angels. What is not to love?
Charlie's Angels, Big Fish.
Yeah. I don't know, Charlie's Angels.
The Nines.
So many great movies, and Craig did all the Hangover movies. I mean, just so much good stuff there. Anyway, so check all that out. Once you're on iTunes, please leave a review. Please leave a rating. If you want to see the video version of the show, youtube.com/iMore video. And we'll be back next week with yet more podcasty stuff.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Ren. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have fun.